Welcome everyone to the Monday Cyprus Chess Talk episode 9. With me we have a special guest, international arbiter Marco Biagioli from Italy. Welcome, Marco.
Thank you, Brian. Good evening. Good evening to everybody.
First of all, I think we should, if you could please introduce yourself to the audience, that would be great.
Yes, of course. I am international arbiter from Italy, and since 2019, during the summer 2019, I was appointed as legal advisor for FIDE for privacy-related matters. So there is now a commission which is called the Data Protection Committee, where I am the legal advisor for it. And inside the organization, I am involved to implement new policies and help FIDE to get compliant with privacy laws, and especially the General Data Protection Regulation, which is the general privacy law in the European Union.
Yeah, so today we'll speak about, we have some questions on the GDPR, in general data protection. If you have any questions, feel free to add them in the chat, the live chat. I will be looking at it. So we will be. We also have some questions that have been sent in. Marco will be answering them and giving any insight. Should we start with the first question, Marco?
Of course, ready if you are.
Yeah. So the first question we have is, how important is GDPR for event organizers in chess?
It's very important, especially I would say for organizers in the chess community, since organizers are the ones who are making possible worldwide big events involving many people. So whenever there is an event involving a wide community and the general public, GDPR comes into force, and we have to consider the privacy constraint when putting in place whatever service is connected with the tournament. So without thinking something really specific, but just to collect the registration forms, or to publish some pictures in the website of the tournament, or to make public some games like publishing PGNs or similar. Whenever we do some activity like that and we operate on data of people, then we have to consider what the privacy laws impose us in order to protect the data of the general public and the specific players participating in the tournament.
So basically every event should have a privacy policy on what they will do with any data.
Yes. Yes, I would answer yes, but not only any chess event, but any chess club, any specific course, or any tournament we organize, as every public aspect of our life involves the treatment of some personal data. And so we have to consider and deal with the laws, and especially GDPR. This is, of course, more and more important when we speak about very big numbers, huge amounts of people, or events involving also kids and generally underage people.
So participants need to sign a consent form, or we can avoid having a consent form and just say, you take part, you have understood the, like just ticking boxes.
We cannot just assume that. We should have some written consent, but I think we should change our perspective. I mean, we consider as normal then whoever wants to participate in a tournament signs a registration form. So when you admit players in your tournament, you ask them to sign a registration form, or maybe to complete it online. So you will have some paper or some electronic repository of people that wish to play in your tournament. So why shouldn't it be normal also to collect the privacy consent? Maybe it can be in the registration form itself. Like if you have a registration form of 1 page, it can be 1 page and few lines just to explain people what will you do with their data, that you will probably use them only to make the tournament happen. So you need to handle data from the players if you want them to play. Just to say something really trivial, to pair them into the tournament. So I think that we shouldn't consider it something really strange to have some consent form. It is just an appendix of what already exists, which is the registration form. And exactly as the registration form, it can be realized online. We do not really need specific papers. We just need something to show that the player consented his data to be used. And it can be online without any specific issue.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So we'll just have a privacy policy in place.
Yes.
And say that you have consented to your privacy to the privacy policy.
Yes.
And if they refuse to, if they do not like some aspects of the privacy policy, do we have the right to refuse their participation due to them not accepting the privacy policy?
Yes, of course, because if someone says that he wants to play in your tournament, but he doesn't allow you to use his name, how can you pair him into the tournament?
Okay.
That sounds, if you change the perspective, it sounds very obvious, but maybe we are just scared about GDPR because we think about endless processes or huge amounts of papers, big archives with signed forms. It is really much easier than what we think. What we call privacy policy, it is just a document of maybe 1 page where we just explain what we do with the people's data. We just use them to pair you into the tournament or similar. And who is handling that? It can be published online. For example, think about FIDE. FIDE is a worldwide huge organization. It has a privacy policy, which is published. Everyone can check it by clicking on www.fide.com/privacy. So the same can be done, for example, by Cyprus Chess Federation when organizing a tournament. The privacy policy can be put in a web page, and everyone will consent just putting a specific declaration in a registration form. We do not have to think it in the complicated way. It can be done also in the easy way.
Okay. I'll add the privacy policy into the chat so anyone who's interested can see it.
Sorry, please.
I will just add the privacy policy into the chat so that people can see it.
Yes, of course.
So that people can have a look. Yeah. So I will take that actually into consideration for my next events where I will have a privacy policy in place and just have participants tick a box that they have read and accepted the terms. Do
you accept the privacy policy which is available here? Yes or no? If they just think no, sorry, your registration cannot be accepted because we cannot register people without a name.
Okay. What about, let's say someone is not happy with certain conditions of the privacy policy, like usage of photographs?
The privacy policy is just one document. You cannot choose like the menu. Okay, I will consent you to use my data to pair me, but I will not consent you to use my data to transfer to the Fair Play Commission in case I was cheating. This is not possible, of course. You are taking
part. So you have to accept the whole thing.
Yes. we cannot, it's true that the law says we cannot impose some useless treatment, or we cannot ask people some data that we don't really need just because we want to use them, saying that in case you will not accept we to use that, you will not play. For example, we cannot ask for blood group people to let them play in a tournament. That would be illegal. But why would be illegal? Because we are asking something that we do not need, something which is not required for us to perform our duty. What you ask us when you apply to play a tournament is just to let you play in the tournament. So we have to ask you only what we need to let you play in the tournament. This is the basics of fair treatment, which is the most important topic.
So if you want anything extra that is not required to play in a tournament, like photos and so on, that should be added later?
Well, a sport event is not only the event itself. I mean, when you organize a sport event, taking a picture of the event, it cannot be considered unnecessary. Blood group is unnecessary. The way that GDPR was built, was written, is a, let's say, Anglo-Saxon way of writing a law. It is not a proper written statute where you have exactly all the conditions, all the data you can require, all the data you cannot require, what you absolutely can't, what you really need to. It relates on your good faith. So it just says that you cannot ask unnecessary data. Then in case there will be a dispute, some regulatory may ask you, why did you ask people to consent this data to be treated? Why did you need to take photos of the playing venue? Why did you need to use their age? And so on. In that case, you will have to prove to the regulatory that it was necessary to run your tournament.
Thank you. Yeah. Let's go to the second question. Okay. The second question is, the new regulations that FIDE approved for online chess state that the recordings can stay in the database for 1 year. Are the federations also covered legally by this, or do they need to oblige to the regulations of their own country?
Well, the online regulations cover the FIDE official tournament. For the other tournament, it is strongly recommended that the federation are implementing these regulations. So in case a national federation wishes to make one online tournament, it is just required to say FIDE online regulations will apply to this tournament. So people who will register to the tournament will have to consider that furthermore than the specific tournament regulations, also all FIDE online regulations will apply, including this article. So this is, let's say, another good reason to invite everybody to use FIDE online regulations where organizing an online chess tournament.
What about if it's contradictory? Let's say that in a country we are not allowed to record young participants. For example, under 18s, we are not. I believe in Cyprus we are not allowed to record under 18s playing chess.
The laws of a country always prevail on sports organizations' internal regulations. So whenever it is forbidden by a specific law of a country to do something, then FIDE online regulations cannot overturn what the law says.
So that means for a local organization, we are not allowed to record and keep in a database.
If the laws of your country don't allow that. Okay. It is not possible, of course. I can tell you that there is a similar example in Italy. For example, the anti-cheating guidelines, the general anti-cheating guidelines, says that you can use some tools to detect the use of forbidden equipment if it is suitable with the laws of your country. So, for example, in Italy, you cannot use jammers to avoid mobile phones or electronic devices to communicate with the different places, like from inside the building to external environment, because it is forbidden by our laws to use jammers, because it interferes with the, let's say, stability of the telecommunications. So we will never be allowed in Italy to organize a tournament with jammers.
What about if it's like an event organized by FIDE, for example, a FIDE World Youth Championship, and in one country it's not allowed for recording? How would a participant take part then?
But are you speaking about online events?
Yeah, online events, yes.
Online events are not taking part in a specific federations. They are supposed to apply the Swiss laws, since FIDE is a Swiss organization.
Okay, so the World Chess Federation is covered because it's following this.
World Chess Federation is following its own rules and own laws, which are the ones where the World Chess Federation is established, which is Switzerland.
Okay, so other federations have not got that covered, as they are based in their own countries, so they have to follow their own countries' laws.
Yes, of course.
Okay, that is clear. Let's go to question 3. So when we take it now to a hybrid event, since now hybrid events are allowed to be even federated, when we have multiple venues across the world, we need to take into consideration every venue's laws, or do we just take it from the hosting country's laws?
That is a very interesting question. And the answer is that every single venue has to implement the laws of its own country, which means that about privacy, every venue could theoretically have a different system than every other venue. Fortunately, it will not happen inside the European Union, since we have some common legal framework. But I agree that in case of multiple venues in different continents, then we can have some different privacy regulations in every different venue. This was considered in any case when writing the online regulations.
So here we need to take into consideration every single venue's laws?
But not every different statute law in all the venues, but every different statute law in its own venues. If you think about it, it is quite logical, because you are based in Cyprus, you are playing through internet, but you are based in Cyprus. So whatever is happening into the playing venue must follow Cyprus laws.
What about a recording
in Italy
being recorded? Or is that, again, as it's online, it's an online?
Oh, well, we are following, of course, what is happening in the venue, and what is happening online is different.
Okay. So what's happening online goes towards the organization that is hosting the event, and what's taking place at the venue physically needs to follow the laws of the country.
Yes.
Okay. That's quite interesting.
I understand that it can create some headache at the moment, but then when you think it with some time, then you realize it is not so illogical as it seems.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It's just yeah, it's interesting. So yeah, okay. Let's go to question 4. So we've covered it a bit, but the question is here, must event organizers have permission of the participants to publish photographs of the players on a website, social media, or even the newspapers? And what are the consequences of non-compliance?
Well, here we have to speak about, just for 1 second, about what is a public event. A public event is something that it takes place in a public place where whoever can have access and see what happens. To take photos of a public event, it doesn't require specific authorizations. So if you take photo of a huge playing venue where people are playing, you do not need authorizations since it is a public sport event, right?
So one minute, public event is where anyone can take part.
Not exactly take part.
Just because, have access to that venue.
Yes, to see it. Think about a football game.
Yes.
Not everyone can take part because only the players.
Yeah.
But everyone can buy a ticket for the stadium to go to see it.
Oh, okay.
So a public event is not restricted by definition, otherwise it is not public. The point being, if you take a photo of the event, then no one could let's say, restrict its publication by privacy laws. It can be a problem of copyright, but that is a problem of the organizer, which is the owner of the event. The point is,
does the owner have the owner of the event does not have the right on the photographs? Yes.
The owner of the event has the right on the photograph of the event.
But the point is,
if you take a portrait.
Yeah.
Because also saying pictures is very generic. You can take a picture of the whole event where basically you will see people playing chess. Maybe you will be able to distinguish some face, but you will basically see people and the venue. Another thing is a portrait. When you take a portrait, then it is not anymore a photo of the event, being a photo of a person. In that case, you should need some consent to publish it. That's why, for example, in Bratislava, where we were at the European Youth Championship, you remember in 2019, the organizer was very serious for that, and they collected consents with the cooperation of the federations, of course, from every single player. In that case, every single guardian, because they were underage, to publish portraits. But again, it can be a part of the registration form. It is always to think how to optimize things. When you register players and you have 1,000 registration forms, why can't you have 1,000 registration forms with privacy disclaimer?
Yeah, it's not that difficult to add, especially as registrations are going to be taking more and more online rather than on paper. You could just have a generic privacy policy page which someone can click on it, read it, and then tick it.
Exactly.
So,
which is basically what exactly is doing, for example, Facebook or any other social network when you register to it. They just tell you, have you read the privacy policy? Yes. Have you understood it? Yes. Do you agree with that? Yes.
Okay. So a public event needs, which means if an event is not selling tickets to watch the event, it's considered a closed event.
No, a clause, the point is not if you have to pay or not to watch it. The point is, if I come to the tournament, will I be allowed to enter to see it or not?
If not, it's not considered public event. So publishing photographs is not
precisely
is not permissible. So a way of being allowed to publish photographs is to make the event accessible to everyone.
Well, but it is already like that. Do you know any chess tournament which is secret?
No, but we do not allow in Cyprus. We do not allow people to come in and watch the event. We don't allow anyone into the area to watch. Like parents are not allowed inside to watch the games. Those making the event not public. Yes.
So you do not have any place where the public can stay to see the games? I don't know, maybe
Well, what do you mean to see the games? To go and watch the children play?
Well, I am a bit amazed by that because I didn't know that it was, for example, it was closed in Cyprus.
No, it's because of the venues. Our venues are not very. It's like if you're in, you're right in the players, so it's very crowded then. So we tend to tell them to leave the area and be outside, so they don't really have access to the playing hall.
That's what we would like to do in Italy, to keep people outside the playing venues, but we normally allow them.
Yeah. Okay. So if no one can access a playing venue, it is not a public event. Otherwise, it is on a public event. Those publishing photographs is of the event, not portrait, is fine. Even in newspapers, or it does make a difference if it's on a website, social media, or newspaper.
Doesn't really make any difference.
It doesn't.
If you can publish it, you can publish it in the website, in the social media, or in the press.
Okay. If it's a portrait, you need it goes into copyright.
Well, the point of copyright that I mentioned is that not about the portrait. We are speaking about the event photo. If you make an event photo and you are the organizer of the event, you are the owner of the photo. I cannot republish it without your permission because it is a copyrighted material. About portrait is a privacy point. We have to distinguish about intellectual property and privacy laws.
Okay. So, and then you need to make sure you own the copyright for any photographs that you have published.
In general, you should.
Okay. What are the consequences of non-compliance for event organizers of?
If you fail to comply with privacy laws, you could theoretically be sued by someone whose data was treated illegitimately. And the first step is that they will ask you to remove the data. And some regulator can fine you. I mean, there are some money penalty, and in some cases they are very strong, but they do not hit specifically who is publishing something, but who is refusing to comply with the orders of the data owner. So if I see that something is published in your website, I do not like the idea, I can ask you to remove my portrait. If you don't do that, then I will apply to the regulatory of my country, and they will ask you to remove my photograph. If you will fail also in that, then probably they will fine you.
Oh, okay. So it's like a warning. You're told to remove it, you remove it.
In general, the first step is to ask the data controller to remove it.
Okay. Yeah, so here event organizers need to make sure that they are very careful with the handling of data.
Yes. If you start receiving emails from people, please remove my data, and then you say, okay, this is not very important. It is only one bothering guy asking to remove his data. I will do that maybe in 1 year. So I will leave the tournament to be published to show how many people I had and blah, blah, blah. Then probably you will face some penalty. But if you comply with the player's request, please remove my data. Okay, your data will have been deleted. Bye bye. Then it will be not a problem.
We must comply. Even if he has given us permission, he can withdraw permission at any point. Yes.
No, in some cases it cannot be withdrawn. Let's say with total freedom. Like if the consent is still required to perform some operations connected to the tournament itself, then the consent cannot be withdrawn.
So like here for photographs, usage of name, publishing of results, and so on.
Publishing of results, of course, cannot be cancelled. You took part to an event, the results were published. You cannot ask your results to be cancelled because you were not happy with the tournament. You can ask, for example, your name to be hidden. So you were in a tournament, you are Mark Bryan. You cannot ask the tournament record to be cancelled, but you can ask your name to be replaced with MB, for example.
Okay.
Yes, this is the pseudonymization and anonymization is a system to solve when data cannot be cancelled, but I do not want them to be published anymore.
What about photographs? Let's say they took photographs, they've published them, but I wasn't very happy with how I looked in the photos.
Was it a portrait or a general photo?
Let's say it was a portrait and I've given permission to the organizer.
Well, in that case, you can ask the picture to be removed, but not from previous records. So, okay, it will be canceled from your website, will be hidden. But I cannot ask you also to get in touch with Google and cancel it from everywhere, of course.
Okay, yeah.
But you can do that if you want. You can contact Google and ask Google to give you all the results and start asking all the billions of websites which have been republished to cancel it.
Okay, so we need to have some, as an event organizer, we need to have some kind of data controller to receive requests like this from participants and
no, it is not a stable organization. You do not need a data protection officer for every single tournament. But as a chess club, if you are a very big organization, you can have a data protection officer. Better is the federation to have one.
So all event organizations would then be like the federation's responsibility?
Not responsibility, but dealing with the communication.
So they will be dealing with the communication and then they will get into conduct.
Yes, but this is not a fixed model. It can be like that. Or you can appoint one for every tournament if you like.
But as let's say chess organizations should have someone dealing with data.
Every organization should have.
Okay. It's also required by law, yes?
Yes.
Okay. Let's go to the next question.
Now, I would like to specify because maybe it can generate some misunderstanding. Every organization should have one person responsible for the data, not one officer called data protection officer.
Okay.
That is for big organization.
Okay.
I mean, someone who is dealing with data. But again, it is not something really artificial. In any organization, there is someone responsible for what the organization is doing, namely the president of this organization. I mean, there must be someone answering to any specific point connected to privacy. What can't really happen is that I'm sending you an email about data protection or removal of data or whatever, And you will answer me, sorry, we cannot answer because in this organization, no one is dealing with privacy.
Okay.
That is not possible.
Okay, so yeah, I understood that. Okay, so let's go to the next question. This, I think, is mainly it applies here in Cyprus. Let's say we organize an event. They need a feed ID. We as organizers need to collect these kind of data that we don't really need to use as an event, but we need to use it as a feed ID. For example, date of birth, the residency, and the nationality. How do we handle such data, and what should we do in such situations?
Please notice, FIDE ID is generated by an officer from the federation. The rating officer of the federation is inputting data in.
Yes, but we need to pick it up.
Yes, of course. But I mean, we have not to confuse responsibilities. Who is responsible for FIDE ID issuance is the federation. Who is responsible for collect name and surname for the purpose to participate at the tournament is the organizer. In some cases, it happens that these processes are simultaneous because I am without any FIDE ID, I'm going to the tournament, and the organizer of the tournament will apply to the chess federation to give me one FIDE ID. For example, in Italy, is always like that. In that case, the player should be warned that he is consenting to two different processes with two different consequences. Okay. I think the best model is from the Austrian Chess Federation, which has different kind of memberships. Like if you have a basic membership, then you will have only the membership of the Chess Federation, and they will not apply for you to have a FIDE ID. In case you have the plus membership, then they will also apply to have a FIDE ID, but you will have to consent to further operations, namely the inputting of your data in the FIDE and rating system. This is a very clear way to handle. So when you apply to be a member of something, a chess club or a local union or going to a tournament, whatever, they will give you different options. So you do not have any FIDE ID. Okay, you can still play the tournament, no problem. But you will have to consent also to one extra process, which is issue for you a FIDE ID, which will be made by the Chess Federation with extra information. Are you aware of that and do you consent? Yes, of course. Then it is not a problem. What shouldn't happen is that I am going to a tournament. I have no FIDE ID. I will just register to a tournament. No one will tell me that my data will be forwarded to FIDE, and then I will discover it later on. I understand that from the perspective of a chess player, this is some strange scenario because every chess player expects his data to be sent to FIDE for the tournament to be rated, of course.
Yeah, we chess players who have FIDE ID, yes, but not for someone who doesn't know about FIDE.
But exactly, if you are one who never participated to a tournament, then you maybe don't know that. So you should be informed in advance. Maybe it will not happen because you will register to the chess club and the chess club will issue for you the FIDE ID before you are going to the tournament. So we are speaking about a very specific and little number of people who are going to a tournament without any FIDE ID. For them, we should inform them about these two different processes.
Should they give it to the organizer, or should the organizer arrange for this data to be sent straight to the federation without coming into the possession of the organizer?
No, it can be in both the ways. Okay. I mean, you can say the player, okay, we'll take care of it, but you have to give me the consent for that. Or please apply to the chess federation, ask them, and then just deliver me the FIDE ID.
So as an organizer, we should have another consent form for non-FIDE ID players.
No, it will be the same consent form. but there will be some extra lines. Like in case you do not have any FIDE ID, please have in mind that we will also do like that.
Okay. That way we are covered in dealing with this kind of data.
Yes. That's why most of the times the consent forms are long, because they are comprising a lot of different scenarios. They are meant not to make things more complicated, but to make things easier. Of course, if I have like 10 different forms and I have to think, okay, player with FIDE ID but not membership number 1, player without FIDE ID but membership number 2, then it would be some crazy work.
Okay.
If you have a consent form which includes all possible processes, then you are fine. Of course, for some people, some processes will be not applicable. Like if someone has already a FIDE ID, the vast majority, they will not need this process.
Okay. Okay, so yeah. Okay, I understand. Let's go to question 6. This is another question here. We get contact details from a player. After the event, must these be deleted or can we use them and contact them again for future events?
It depends. If they want to be contacted in the future for future event, then you can do that. If they do not want, you don't have to delete the data, but you don't have to use them. So, for example, if you register to a website, any possible website for any whatsoever service, you have several options like, okay, I agree with the treatment of my data, otherwise you cannot register, like it is a mandatory consent. Otherwise, it doesn't allow you to keep going with the registration, yes?
Yeah.
Then you have like sub option. I also agree for my data to be transferred to our partners to receive some special communication. Or I agree for my data to be used to receive from you some special communication. Have you ever noticed these options?
Yeah, I've seen some like opt-in, like you could opt in for future messages or future events.
And the same can be done by the chess organizer. I mean, when you register people, it always starts from registering people, because this is the only way why they enter a chess tournament. They register for the tournament. And it all starts from there. So do you also want in the future to know about our tournaments? You can opt yes or no. Do you also want that we transfer this data to another chess club so you will be informed also by their tournament? And you can opt yes or no. You can ask, I mean, with the constraint of asking something which is related to what we are doing, you can ask basically everything. I'm going back to this very stupid example of the blood group, but it is to give one idea. You really cannot ask people to give you the blood group because it doesn't make any sense with the chess tournament.
Yeah.
But if you are planning to cooperate with other clubs, with the chess companies, with the organizations, then you can ask people, do you want also to be informed by the chess tournaments, about the chess tournaments of our partners? This is connected to a chess tournament. So you can give this option. Do you also want to be informed about some different services? Normally, there are 3 options. Do you want information for the future about my events, and my services in general? Yeah. Do you want for the future to receive information from my partners about the similar services? And do you want for the future to be informed by my partners for other services? And these 3 options are exactly like that. Do you want for the future to know about my tournaments? Do you want for the future to know about the tournaments of my partners? Do you want for the future to know about other services for my partners? For example, if you have one sailing chess club, do you want also to be informed by the sailing cruises? I'm making just examples.
Yeah.
I don't know, they are not realistic, but it is just to give an idea. What you really can't do is ask, do you want us to give your data to everyone so everyone will inform you about everything? No, okay. If there is a partnership between you and another company
or
that you are
sponsors,
giving,
yes,
that you are giving similar services, then it makes sense.
Okay.
But you cannot ask someone, can I sell your data to a Brazilian company which is, I don't know, taking care about hairdressing? Because it has nothing to do with your activity. I can expect that you are cooperating with another chess company, but I cannot expect that you are cooperating with an hairdresser company in another continent. So we go back to what is a fair treatment of my data and what is really unfair.
Okay.
But Mark, if you have some hairdresser company, really, I maybe need it. So you can give my data to the hairdresser company.
I know you don't live in France. If you lived in France, I could suggest a hairdresser. Yeah, but for online events, since I think we've covered this, since we've said that this needs to be in a consent form, at the registration form. We've covered this. We don't need.
No, you do not need the different forms. You need just one, provided that you always remember that you cannot ask someone to consent to something which is not permitted by your laws.
Okay, yeah.
So in this specific case of recording, if your laws don't allow any recording to be made, then you cannot ask people to consent, because that consent would be nullified.
Okay. But if they can, we just put it into the privacy policy and the tournament regulations, and it is fine.
Yes.
As players should have read the regulations and cannot complain about it at a further point.
That is why the first option is always I have read and I have understood the general terms and conditions. Sometimes if you register to some website or from some huge company, then you have, for example, one little box, then you can scroll down and it is, I don't know, like 1,000 lines. And at the end, you have, I have read and I have perfectly understood the content of general terms and conditions. Nobody have read that in the life, but everyone declared that they had. In fact, I noticed the last development about this web designing, engineering, about privacy, that if you don't scroll the whole box, the option to say I have read is not available. Yes, so at least you have to scroll it. That is nice. I think the first one to implement that was Apple with iTunes, that you saw general terms and conditions, where is accept? But you couldn't see accept until you didn't scroll the whole page.
Yeah, but some of the conditions, if you read it, you're like, I don't really agree to this, but...
Yes, yeah. That's why they are long, so they discourage you to read all them.
Yes. I think this is our next is a lot. We have no other questions so far, Marco. Is there anything else that you would like to add to privacy?
Yes, I would like to add one very important remark, because I noticed that when I speak about privacy, many people believe that we are speaking about something which is really not connected. It is someone told me, but we are speaking about a different world. I mean, we are not so organized to do like that. It seems to be very complicated, but it is not so complicated as we think. To have, of course, if you are a huge company, then you need a full privacy department. That's clear. In fact, FIDE, which is a huge organization, have its privacy department. If you are the local organizer, if you are a chess club, if you are a temporary organization, then the operation to collect forms, whatever, seems complicated, but it is not. What you need is just a proper form to be signed by everyone who is taking part to your event, which is nothing more than what already happens with registration forms. You will just create your file at the end of the tournament with consent forms and put in your archive. In case some regulatory wants some specific information, you will just open your archive and provide them the information.
And how long do you need to keep your archive for?
Preferably in some place which is not accessible by everyone.
How long? For quite a while, or?
At least 10 years.
At least 10 years.
Yes. Okay. But if the treatment is going to be longer, then as long as you have the treatment, then you have to preserve the archives. So if you are putting your tournament in your website and it will last in your website forever, then you will have to preserve the consents forever.
So you're not allowed to delete consent?
If you delete also the tournament, yes.
Okay.
But I mean, archives in paper are outdated now. We are in 2021. Having archives in paper is a huge expense. They are unsafe and they are unpractical. An electronic archive is very much better. If you have one server which is encrypted and secured by password, it is quite enough to grant the safety of the data you have handled. So, I do not see any specific reason to have a paper archive.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
In any case, privacy@fide.com is always ready to help any federation or organization to implement good policies. So, as I always tell, when we finish a meeting, when we finish a session, when we speak with people, in case you have any doubt about how you should operate with data, you can just ask to privacy@fide.com to help you, and we will suggest you what is better according to the best practice about data protection. We normally answer not longer than 48 hours.
Okay. Well, let me write that again. Yeah, so we'll put that there. So anyone who has any questions should just contact privacy@fide.com, yes?
Yes.
Privacy@fide.com, yeah. I think we'll wrap it up for tonight. Thank you everyone for watching. Thank you, Marco, for being on the stream.
Thank you, Mark. It was very nice to speak with you about GDPR this night.
All right, then. See you